How's it going, everybody? It's Mason here with E4 Outdoors, and today I'm going to be showing you guys how I make my chatterbaits from start to finish, and everything that you'll need to do so. So starting off, making the chatterbaits, you're obviously going to need some type of mold. There's a couple different options that you have to choose from for whatever style head that you want on the chatterbait as well. For this, I have the Sparky Jig head, and there's a little bit of finagling we're gonna have to do with this mold to get it to work, and I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about as we get into it. But first, you're gonna need whatever mold that you want to use. This mold, it's the Mustad, let's see, 32608 4/0, just a straight line hook there. You're gonna need the STW 130 connectors, which this is what they look like, or this is how they come originally, and then this is going to be very hard to show, but that's what we're going to do to it to make it work, and I'll explain that here in a second. Next thing you're going to need is the blade to go on the chatterbait. There's two different options. You got your turbo blade, which is what I use for most of mine, and then you have just your standard blade. There's no bend in these blades. There are several different options that you can choose from for whatever type of blade or style that you're wanting to go for on your chatterbait. But me, I just use the standard blade or the turbo blade, and I'll explain the difference between those two as I'm moving forward. And then lastly, you're going to need one of these quick connectors to go onto the blade. So now that we've covered everything that you'll need to make them, we're going to jump into the actual process. Okay, so while we're waiting on the lead to heat up, I'm going to show you guys what to do with this STW 130. For what we're doing, you're going to need a pair of needle nose as well as a pair of dikes. And you take the needle nose here, and you can see the opened end of this linkage here. You're going to go just kind of right below the neck of that and bend it over just like such. Okay, and now we're going to take the dikes and cut it about right in there. And this is what's left. Just like that. So what this is going to do, when your hook is sitting in the mold, you're going to take that leg and hook it through there. And this is going to be where your blade goes. I'll show you a visual on the mold itself. Okay, so as you can see, this is how the connector is actually going to be set in the mold itself, and how it goes through the hook, just to give you guys a representation of what I was talking about earlier, because that can be kind of confusing. Well, now our lead is warm and ready to pour, so I'm going to go ahead and pour this one up, and we will go from there. And like I mentioned in the first video, this lead does not take very long at all to form or cool down. And that's what we have. Our finished result there. Obviously, we're going to remove the top overpour of this lead here, and we still have some irregularities around the side, but we'll go over that with the needle file and get that taken care of. So now we have the mold all cleaned up. As you can see, taking down those irregularities that we had. It's very important, keep this end open here. We're going to close it once we install the blade, but now we're about ready. So we got our black Protect powder paint here. Like I said, the head of the one I showed in the beginning of this video is black. We're just going to replicate the same one. I'm going to kick the heat gun on low, and I'm not going to try to talk during this because I know this is kind of loud. So now we're done with the paint. We're going to go ahead, throw it in the oven, and go from there. Alright, so this thing is fresh out of the oven. As you can see, the finish turned out really good on it. One thing I forgot to mention is you can see up here how I took the paint off of the eye before I put it in the oven. That way I didn't seek that paint on there so it doesn't chip off or anything like that on there. Some people may want to leave it on. I choose not to, but you know, that's personal preference there. So I personally hand tie all of the chatterbaits. I don't use the rubber banded collar. Some people may. I just think that the wire tying is much more efficient there. I get this leader wire from Bass Pro Shops. It's 16 gauge, as you can see on the tag there. It was cheap. I think it was $5 for 200 feet of it, you know, which is obviously going to last you a while. This process can be kind of frustrating, but I'm going to do my best to show. So I take about 6 inches this leader wire, cut it out, and I'm going to go ahead and bend it into a U shape or a V shape, whatever you want to call that, like so. Okay. Next, it's very important. I would highly advise to get some of these wacky rig O-rings. They're super helpful. They're not required, so you can do it a different way, but these definitely help the process a lot. So I take my tabs, fold them over, and then just work them through the O-ring about halfway here. Okay. Now, the easiest thing that I've found is you separate one of these tabs like such. Okay, I have one tab up here that's folded over, and then the other 2 tabs down here. Now I'm just going to insert the hook and slide it up. Put it back in the holder. Okay, so I have one tab that's going to hang down here, and I have my 2 upper tabs that are going to hang over the top like such. Okay, and once you get them in position where you want, you can kind of slide this O-ring up. Don't expect it to stay, but sometimes it will, sometimes it won't. Now, what I'm going to do is take this leader wire, stick it under there, okay, like such. As you can see, I'll bring it back around, and then I'm going to loop it back around one more time. But you want to make sure that you pull this tight when you loop it around, okay, and then bring it back to that U shape again here. Alright, now these are going to be a lifesaver. These are these locking pliers, because obviously they're not scissors, which as you can see I broke one of the legs off of this, but I'm going to be putting that wire right in the gap there, and it's going to hold just the same. Okay, now I lock back. So I don't want to pull back too hard, okay, but I definitely want to put some tension on there, and then I'm just going to twist until I can close that gap. And as you can see, you know, my twists are slowly starting to close that. So I keep twisting till I get that gap closed. But it's very important that you stop twisting as soon as that gap disappears. Okay? Now I'm just going to cut and leave, you know, maybe 1/4 of an inch left on there. And as you can see here how many twists I actually got out of that. So that that leader wire is very tight. And of course, as you can see, I want to keep it as close in there as possible. And I just take my needle nose and I bend that piece down there just to hide it in the skirt where the folds are. So now I'm going to take my tabs and go ahead and trim them while it's still in the holder. Pretty easy. You just want to make sure you get the end of these tabs as even as possible when you're cutting. Okay. Now I can remove, as you can see, I took the O-ring off. Like I said, they help. Those O-rings help a lot when trying to hold that skirt material on there. And there may be other ways to do that, but that's just how I learned to do it, and that's how I prefer now. So I'm going to go ahead and trim up the skirt a little bit. As you can see how tight that leader wire is there, and this skirt is not going anywhere. That leader wire is going to outlast this skirt by a long shot. And next, we're ready to install the blade. Like I said, I have the standard blade and then the turbo blade, which this is the blade that's going to be going on there. But first, we have to paint it. As you can see, this one's color matched. I offer both. I offer just the standard blade without it being color matched, and I also offer color matched. So I'm going to get in painting it and show you exactly how I do that, and we'll put it all together. So when I paint these, it's pretty simple. For the base layer of the blade itself, I'm just going to use regular spray paint. And then for the splattered black on there, I'm going to use some of my airbrush paint. Obviously, you could use spray paint to do the splatter as well, but I think it's easier for me because I just use a little paintbrush and then flick it on there. And also an alligator clamp to hold the blade in place. Okay, and so what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to apply a very light layer of this blue. Just until you can see that silver disappear. Boom, like such. And then I'm going to let it dry, which the light is hitting that, so it makes it look a lot lighter than what it actually is, but it's a dark blue. Okay, so my paint's dried a little bit here. Now I've already applied the black to my brush, and I'm just gonna pop it towards myself, which is gonna splatter a little bit of that paint up there. As you can see on the one side, which we're gonna add a lot more than that. Yeah. Sometimes you may have to go back and get a little bit more paint on the end of there, but you don't want to get too much where it's gonna glob up and you have too many larger spots. Okay, and as you can see on the front of that blade, may add a little bit more, may keep it at that, just a subtle little bit of splatter on there. Alright, so now, as you can see, I've finished splatter painting it. Like I said, I don't want to overdo it, but just give it a little bit of that splatter. Once this paint dries a little bit, I personally add a clear coat on top of it. This one's obviously a gloss finish. They have matte as well, you know, if you're not looking for that real shiny look, but the gloss does just fine. It doesn't make it super shiny or anything like that, so that's what I'm going to use. And like I said, once it dries a little bit, I go ahead and just apply a real light coat to the blade itself. It may be hard for you to tell, but it is shined up a little bit. Let that dry, because what that's going to do is it's going to try to help. I mean, obviously this thing's going to be, you know, scraped and banged up not long after you start using it. But this just kind of adds a little bit of a level to protection, so it doesn't, you know, just completely scratch all that paint off right off the bat. So we'll let that dry and then we'll throw it together and then that'll be it. Now that our blade is dry, I'm going to go ahead and connect it. All you got to do is put it on the hoop there. Take your needle nose pliers, grab the top and the bottom of that connector. Let me do it this way. And all you're doing is just locking that connector down back into the head. Now, as you can see, that connector is locked back down to the head. And here is our finished product. Nice and shiny, and it's color matched with the wire tie on there. All that's left is to add your little quick connector. Alright, and like I said, that's how you guys get a finished chatterbait like that with the color match blade that is wire tied. As we all know, some chatterbaits in the store are $20 a piece, which is really what got me into making these. You can save a ton of money making these yourself. With that being said, thank you guys for watching. Hopefully you learned something from this video. If not, or if there's something that you do different or think you could do different, please let me know in the comments. I'll get back to you guys with an answer. But I appreciate everyone watching, and we'll see you in the next video.